For those of you who only watch our YouTube channel, you may not know, but Project COE, like myself, is quite old. The group started off on the Nintendo Insider message boards way back when, and eventually became a website. And then from there, we've slowly transitioned to YouTube, where we've had our biggest success. Our claim to fame originally was our import reviews of such classic games such as Baten Kaitos, and of course, the Dragon Quest series. The first entry in the series that I did an import review of was Dragon Quest VIII, I believe, on the PlayStation 2. That was many years ago now. And I just wanted to share that short story, as I've been doing this for quite some time now, and I'm one heck of a hardcore Dragon Quest fan. So typically my reviews of this series are always biased because, well, I love the series. So let's begin. Dragon Quest XI begins on a dark and stormy night where a loving mother is cradling her child against the sinister lightning storm raging outside. There's something special about this child though, you can just tell. He's super cute, but he also has a birthmark in a very reminiscent shape that longtime Dragon Quest fans will recognize immediately. Moments later, she's outside running for her life as 3 Dullahan chase after her. A little girl's with her too, and the mother realizes that if they split up, perhaps the little girl can make it out with the child safely. Sadly, fate intervenes and the child ends up in the water coasting away, seemingly lost forever. Thankfully for the player, that's not the case, and a kindly old man finds the child and brings it back to his village. 16 years later, the child has grown and partakes in a ritual all coming-of-age children do. Except, as I said before, there's something special about this child. Eventually, he'll be summoned to see the king, and from there, one of the very best Dragon Quest adventures of all time begins. I kid you not, ladies and gentlemen, this one is epic. The biggest surprise with the storyline is the fact that it gets dark. I mean, really dark. I was truly surprised by this, as most of the time Dragon Quest storylines, while certainly mature, are often much more lighthearted in the grand scheme of things, but here there are moments where I even teared up a little bit. There's also a deep-rooted connection to some of the very earliest games in the Dragon Quest series. However, I leave it to you to discover what those connections are. I should also point out that you don't need to have played the older games to fully enjoy this one. The game does a really good job of explaining what these connections are and why they're significant. Naturally, I can't speak much of the story without spoiling it, but something happens a little over halfway into the game that forever changes the game's narrative. And when you think it's all over, you might just want to load your save after the credits, as the game truly isn't over. In fact, it's far from over. That's one of the most impressive aspects I wasn't expecting with Dragon Quest XI, the post-game content. There's absolutely tons of it. Dragon Quest is known for offering some excellent post-game content, but here it takes the cake. The story actually continues past the credits and is a must-play. After putting in an additional 10 or so hours before doing this review, I started to wonder why this wasn't included in the main game. Not that I'm complaining though, but it does seem to add a lot, as the true villain reveals itself and you get to see way more story with your teammates than before, so I'm just worried that people might skip over it. Speaking of your teammates, this is one feature that I am so happy to see return. Not only can you chat with party members pretty much whenever you want, but you can visit a campsite and chat it up there too. Each character is fully fleshed out with deep backstories and their own motivations for joining the hero. While Dragon Quest IX used generic characters that you created without any backstory whatsoever, and Dragon Quest X had real-life friends join your party, again, the backstory was, well, sort of whatever you made it. There wasn't a fleshed-out story to explain each and every detail of these characters' lives. That's not to speak ill of 9 or 10, but it really is nice to have that more traditional structure back. Something else that I thoroughly enjoyed with Dragon Quest XI has been the modernization of the series. No longer do you need to exclusively visit churches to save your game. Now you can save at campsites, which are scattered all over the world map, while in some of the earlier dungeons there are also save points that have been added in the form of goddess statues. This is a very welcome change that newcomers especially will appreciate. Another new element that I really enjoyed was the new mount system. As you fight enemies, you may notice that some of them are riding horses or other manner of mounts. If you defeat said enemy, there's a chance the mount will stay behind, which allows you access to a whole slew of new areas. One of these mounts can fly over chasms, one can walk on walls, another can perform a massive jump over gaps, etc. It's really cool stuff. You can even ride a horse throughout the overworld. Dungeons are expertly designed and extremely fun to explore. So are boss fights, they're really good. The same can be said for the overworld or main environment you traverse. There are little sparkling spots all over the place that reward exploration with some much needed ingredients, and maybe even that rare treasure chest that can contain everything from a new shield to mini medals. Yes, mini medals are back, as are casinos, and all the classic staples you'd expect from a Dragon Quest game. Something that's been inspired from Dragon Quest X is the new magical blacksmithing anvil. This new device replaces the classic alchemy pot and allows you to construct some truly remarkable weapons, armor, and accessories. It's great and uses the same 3-star system from Dragon Quest X. What's really cool is that you can even go back and enhance previously made items to get that elusive 3-star ranking. Speaking of rankings, every item in the game has a rank from F to S. I should point out that the absolute very best items in the game are all found in the post-game. That's not the only aspect of the game to have a connection to Dragon Quest X though. As you play through the game, you can visit a priest who can give you a special code that you can use in a couple of different ways. The primary purpose of the code system is to link the PlayStation 4 and 3DS versions of the game together. Let's say you're about 25 hours into the PS4 version, but you're going to go on vacation and want to continue with the 3DS version. Well, you can do that via this code system. Naturally, not everything is going to be transferred over, but it generally places you near where you left off and at a similar level. The other use of the code system is to unlock goodies in Dragon Quest X. As of the time of this recording, you have until about mid-November to unlock everything, so be sure to hop to it, Dragon Quest fans. There are a few additional systems I'd like to discuss before moving on to version-specific features. Let's talk a little bit about the skill panel system. For years now, you've been able to allocate points you earn from leveling up to unlock certain skills through a variety of class systems that have been used in the series for decades now. This one does away with pretty much all of that. Each of the playable characters has a set of usually 2 or 3 roles that they can play, and as you level up you can unlock specific skills and attributes based on how you play. I can already hear people asking, don't worry, characters don't end up all becoming, these godly generic characters or clones of one another. As I said, there are usually only 2 different versions or 2 different roles that these characters can play, and everything is tied to weapons, which again is a very classic Dragon Quest thing to do. So a character that is meant to be a healer and give stat buffs isn't suddenly going to be wrecking face with a 2-handed sword. Instead, said person might have access to, say, a whip, and while that will naturally hurt their defensive magical abilities, as they won't be using a wand anymore, what they lack in magical strength, they'll more than make up for in that physical attack power, because they can now attack all enemies. But it's not the same thing. You're not fundamentally changing these characters. Different things like that are what help keep the system fresh and prevent everyone from becoming the same godly character by the end of the game, or clones of one another. This new skill panel system also plays into the new In the Zone and Link skills. This is the first Dragon Quest I can think of in ages that doesn't have a tension system. Instead, as you take damage, your characters will get quote-unquote in the zone, as the game calls it. This gives your characters a few attribute bonuses, but its primary purpose is to use Link skills. Let's say the hero, Camus, and Senya all happen to be in the zone at the same time. Well, you'll notice that a new menu option will appear that allows you to select from a series of unlocked Link skills. These are usually incredibly powerful skills that will decimate regular foes and give a good pummeling to bosses. There are both offensive and defensive Link skills, so experiment and have fun with the new system. The rest of the combat system is what you've come to expect from the Dragon Quest series. You can set your teammates to be controlled by the artificial intelligence or manual, as I do. You can select from regular attacks, powerful magical attacks, or skills. It's all standard stuff longtime fans wouldn't have any other way. Up to this point, everything in the review will likely be repeated when I review the PlayStation 4 version of the game. However, starting right now, just about everything I say will be exclusive to the 3DS version. So let's start by talking about what this game, or this version, has to offer. Well, as you've likely seen, right off the bat, when you buy the 3DS version of Dragon Quest XI, you not only get one version of the game, but two. You can either play through the entire game in full 3D with an audio-visual presentation that's similar in design to the Dragon Quest VIII remake on the 3DS, or you can play through the entire game in 2D with graphics reminiscent to that of Dragon Quest III, or the remake of Dragon Quest III on the Super Famicom. There are some fundamental differences between each version. For one, the combat system in the 3D version allows you to see all the enemies on the overworld, and you can get in a nice quick attack before you engage in combat. In the 2D version, you're back to random encounters with static images. What's nice with the 2D version, though, is that you can easily spot hidden areas and shiny spots, and even treasure chests. The world is also significantly smaller in the 2D version, which feels right at home on a portable system. I found myself switching back and forth all the time just to experience the two versions. The game is graphically stunning in 2D mode, and I believe I might do an entire playthrough again in 2D mode once I'm done with the PlayStation 4 version. Longtime fans will surely enjoy this. Now, the biggest exclusive feature to the 3DS version of the game comes in the form of the Yoshi. These little guys are central to the storyline, but also make up an incredible side game within the 3DS version of the game. If you activate Street Pass, you can share your own custom Yoshi with anyone who happens to walk by you with a copy of the game on their 3DS. Now, don't worry about Street Pass though, as it's not mandatory. You'll find these little guys literally everywhere as you explore. With a team of these critters, you can either manually or automatically tackle a specific multi-floor dungeon that rewards players with an assortment of goodies. Some of these are for your team itself, and others are for your Yoshi. You can even locate special scrolls which grant you access to retro areas from all 10 previous Dragon Quest games. These are an absolute highlight and a must-play for longtime fans of the series. I can't tell you how awesome it is to revisit some of my favorite Dragon Quest games as they were originally designed on their launch platform. That means you can experience Famicom, Super Famicom, etc. games all over again. What's even better is that each of these areas, I said games, but it's areas, are connected to one another. So you might unlock, say, a quest in Dragon Quest V that makes you travel back to Dragon Quest I in order to battle a hidden monster who's taken the shape of one of the NPCs. It's an incredible mode, and one I really hope makes its way to North America. Overall, Dragon Quest XI is a masterpiece. This 3DS version is one I can wholeheartedly recommend for all the bonus and exclusive features that it calls its own. I will be reviewing the PlayStation 4 version separately, but I'll tell you right now, it's going to have its work cut out for it to top this incredible version of the game. While Square-Enix has not confirmed whether the 3DS version will be released in North America at this particular point in time, I certainly hope it will, as it's one of the best games ever released on the 3DS.